In this episode, Josh Kaplan, founder of Clubhouse Work Golf, shares his journey from product management and software to launching a unique co-working space and golf club. He discusses the inspiration behind Clubhouse, the challenges of transitioning from digital to physical spaces, and the importance of community in growing the business. Josh also highlights the role of research, adaptability, and customer insights in shaping his vision. He also reflects on the entrepreneurial journey, offering advice to aspiring business owners and highlighting the importance of understanding customer needs. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to The Range, the podcast where we explore the intersection of passion and business in the world of golf. I'm your host, Ari Ratner, and each episode will dive into the stories of the innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers who are transforming the game we love into thriving businesses. Whether you're a golf enthusiast, an inspiring entrepreneur, or just curious about the business behind the sport, you're in the right place. So grab your clubs and join us on The Range as we tee off into the world of golf entrepreneurship. Welcome back to The Range. Today, I am excited to talk with Josh Kaplan, founder of Clubhouse Work Golf. I came across Clubhouse, must have been either a post on LinkedIn and Twitter, and became super fascinated in what he's doing and what they're doing out in Colorado. So glad to have you on. Welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Hey, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So before we jump into the business, would love to give the audience a sense of your connection to the game, when you started to pick up the sticks and how you arrived at starting the business.
Yeah. I think like a lot of people, my dad got me into the game. It's probably somewhere in that 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old range. I don't remember, but I remember playing pretty much as early as I could, as much as I could. I grew up in Indiana, and we belonged to this kind of tiny little club in my hometown, and I would put my clubs on my back during the summer, ride my bike 5 minutes to the in-town 9-holer and play as much as I could. Go to the swimming pool, and just golf was kind of always a part of my life from as young as I can.
Yeah. So with the clubhouse recently opening, talk about how you transitioned from your professional career into becoming an entrepreneur, connected in the golf industry. Why now? Why golf? And maybe actually before we jump into that, give the audience a sense of the business and what you are aspiring to do, both locally and then hopefully eventually nationally.
Yeah. So Clubhouse is, as far as we're aware, the world's first co-working and golf club. You kind of imagine a WeWork, Industrious, one of those kind of big co-working models where we've got, private offices, co-working, social memberships, places for professionals to work. But we, decided to add a golf element to it. So we have a suite that has 3 TrackMan simulators, a 450 square foot putting green, kind of a lounge clubhouse type vibe. We don't do a lot of kind of office furniture. We, very comfortable kind of club seating, and it really is one of those things that I don't think I ever really planned on doing this. I've worked in software for almost 20 years, always kind of wanted to start my own business and assumed I would. My dad owned his own business. My grandparents both owned their own business. And then, the idea kind of came to me, and it was just this like obvious moment of, well, this would be, I need this. Like, I want this. My friends and I want this. Right. And it was not this, we didn't have this like big ideation session. Like, what could we do? Like, we were looking to get in co-working. It just kind of came to me, and it was like, all right, now here it is. Like, it's, if you don't do this, you're an idiot. This is kind of what you were to do. So, I say it's funny. I worked in software for almost 20 years, and I always just assumed I would build an app like everyone else does, and, that would be it. But here I am in the analog world now, not the digital.
Yeah. What aspects of your software experience have you brought to being an entrepreneur that has helped you kind of get to 0 to 1, meaning idea to actually having a business?
So I was a product manager. I never actually wrote code, but I kind of was that liaison in between customers, the business, and the engineering team. So, for that 18 to 20 years, my job was to talk to customers, learn what they were looking for, read between the lines, come up with ideas, and then help kind of implement them. And, when you're in, a software, I especially worked for, a lot of startups, a lot of tech startups, and I ran an innovation lab for 4 years. And, the idea there is like, what's the smallest thing that we can build to test the idea, see if there's validity, see if it works. And then we can iterate from there, invest from there. And so, while I'm working in the analog world, I'm working with, with walls and furniture and whatever. Like, it's still the same concept, right? Is how do you talk to customers? How do you kind of understand what people are looking for? How do you build it small? How do you test it? How do you grow and iterate from there? So, it's really, the overlap is almost the overlap in the Venn diagram is almost a circle. It's just the difference is, you're working with hard goods instead of software.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think about your business as, a service or a place for people to come and experience something different. Where I've talked to other businesses that have a product, they buy inventory, and then their job is to selling that inventory or selling through that inventory. Explain to the audience, how you approach building this business in bringing people in, not only to hit a ball, but also to use it as a co-working space.
Yeah. I mean, so let's kind of go back to the start where this came from, and it'll kind of explain that a little bit. So in 2018, 2019, sometime around there, I built a simulator in my garage. It kind of started off as just a little SkyTrack, cheap little unit with a hitting mat, a net. And then I had my iPad up there connected so I could kind of see the ball flight on the range. I was working remote. I was working for a company that was based out of Paris. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. I would work early in the morning until around noon when my team in Paris would take off. And then afternoons were for golf course, or during the winter, I'd go out and kind of bang balls in the garage. And I kind of started to kind of recognize this, like, this is awesome. We've got a 30-minute break in between Zoom calls or in between tasks. I'm going to go out, kind of bang some balls and just blow off a little bit of steam. And it kind of grew from there. I built the simulator a little bit better. I put the screen, I put the frames in, I put the projector in, I kind of made it a real thing. When my son was born, my second son was born in summer of 21, his room was right above the garage. So, indoor golf can be kind of loud. Baby sleeping upstairs, not the best situation. So we tore the simulator down, put it in the crawl space. And later that fall, a bunch of friends and I get together at an indoor golf bar every Wednesday and do this kind of indoor spring league. Just the way to, in Denver, you can generally play every month of the year if you want to tolerate it. But just a good way that, we kind of hang out, keep the relationships going, just play some golf. And I'm sitting there at this bar, kind of looking at this kind of industrial warehouse looking place with two sims in a bar in it. I'm looking at it, I'm like, I've got the simulator in my crawl space. I work remote. All of my buddies work in tech. They all work from home. They all work remote. This is, right kind of the tail end of COVID. So everybody's kind of working remote. And I'm started like, guys, what if we just rented a crappy little warehouse, kind of like this? It's got to be cheap. I don't know anything about commercial real estate, but it's got to be cheap. We put up a couple couches, desks, tables, put the sim up, and we could just hang out and play golf and work all day. And that's kind of where that light bulb went off. So, that's really kind of where the genesis of the business started. That idea came to me in, October, November of 2021. And it took us a long time to get here. And we'll kind of get into the story and the pain that it took to get here. It took us 3 years from the time that we started looking for commercial real estate to the day that we found it. So we found this location. So in that time, there's a ton of time to, before we even started looking for space, we had a logo, we had a brand, we had a website, we had merch, of course, as most golfers do, but we had a ton of time to go out and build an audience, build a customer base, talk to people, iterate on the idea. I think if we got the first location that we were looking for in January of 2021, this would have looked completely different. And I'm not actually sure that it would have succeeded. We needed that time to market test, to iterate, to really kind of think about things. Unlike software, if you make a mistake in real estate or design or build out, you can't just delete the code and start over. It's an expensive cost. So it took us, a long time to really kind of iterate and come up with and get to this version that we're in now, which is not necessarily the final version. We still kind of consider this our pilot location. Since this has never been done before, we spend a lot of time talking to other co-working operators, people in the co-working industry that run startup schools and kind of help new operators. There's a lot of kind of laws of co-working, like how things should work, how things do work. Here's your general kind of operating procedures. Here's your rules. 80% of that gets thrown out the window when you include the golf simulators. There's this uncharted territory that, we're learning as we go, and we're updating policies and how we do things almost on a daily, weekly basis. So it's still this kind of pilot MVP learning spot for us.
Well, let's stay on the similarities or analog with your software experience, because I think it's interesting that the point of, if you had launched in January of 21, the business would look a lot different if it still existed. But give the audience a sense of what that research entailed, right? I'm sure, as you mentioned, it started with just some buddies talking about how cool this would be. But how do you formalize that and turn it into data that then you could gain insights from?
A couple different ways. So when we first came up with the idea, the first thing we did is we kind of, the way that this kind of materialized was there was 10 of us at this bar, and we're like, okay, cool. We should all do that. Let's get together, pool our money, and buy a cheap warehouse. A couple of weeks of talking about that to internally to other people, like it became like 30, 40, 50 people were like, hey, if you do this, can I jump in? So like that was kind of the inflection point where like, okay, that we have to look into this. I have to do something. Like this is not just something to do with buddies. We somehow got access to one of the kind of large public golf courses men's club email list. I don't remember how we did that, but we put together a Google Forms poll with extremely loaded questions, right? Like if you could play golf at work, would you? Like if you had a co-working space with simulators, would you do it? Like whatever. You're sending it out to 600 golf addicts. Like of course the response is going to be extremely positive. So we kind of use that as not as validation. I mean, of course it was validation, but more to kind of build a list of like, okay, now here's the people we should start talking directly to. So we spent a lot of time talking to people. Not knowing anything about co-working, I started researching the co-working business model. I'd been to WeWorks and stuff like that before, but from an operator standpoint, I didn't know anything about that. Your first inclination when doing something like this is, how do you start small, right? So like, let's go get 3,000 square feet. Let's not build a ton of infrastructure or offices in there. Let's kind of have this big open space. Let's put the Sims up. And then I found it right around Christmas of 21. I found a woman who she used to operate a couple of different co-working locations, some in Chicago, some in Palo Alto. And she transitioned into what she calls the co-working startup school, where she helps new operators build a plan, avoid some of the early mistakes that most people make, and started working with her. And, she basically kind of said, you want to go small with your size. You want to go short term on your lease, a 3-year deal, 5-year deal, and you don't want to invest a ton of money. You don't want to build out offices. You want to just have this open space. She's like, every operator wants to do that. It's a recipe for disaster. You make your money off of the private offices. You can't make a ton of money on these kind of co-working type members. You need the private office members. To get the best deal, you need, a 5, 7, 10-year lease if you're going to lease the spot. The economies of scale don't work at 3,000 or 5,000 square feet. Your hard costs, other than build out, like your monthly operating costs pretty much are the same, whether you're 3,000 square feet or 10,000 or 15,000 square feet. So if you're going to do this and you actually want to make money doing it, you need to be looking at 10,000+ square feet. And so a year or so of working with her, trying to, iterate on the plan, the first place we looked at was 5,000 square feet. The second space we looked at was 24,000 square feet. The third space we looked at was 31,000 square feet. It was the penthouse of this amazing office building here in Denver that had, mountain views, 360. So, she helped us really kind of craft what are we doing. And, everything kind of ebbed and flowed from there. We looked at big space. We looked at putting in as many small offices as we could and realized that for every wall that you build, your costs go up. We're a startup. We don't have a ton of money. So there had to be kind of this equilibrium or this balance between what are we going to build out versus what can we afford to build out. So, it was really just a couple of years of iterating, and every space is different, right? So we generally looked for what we call second generation spaces that already had some office infrastructure, some walls and stuff built out, where you could come in, add some stuff, but you're basically just doing paint, for finishings, carpet, like you're trying to really limit your capital expenditures. But every space is different. So we worked with architects and space planners and did space plans, and, really just every time we had probably close to 10 deals that I would say made it down to the, at least in the red zone, maybe down to the 1-2 yard line that fell apart. But every one of those was this kind of learning experience of, how do you talk to landlords? How do you talk to asset managers? How do you space plan? How do you build your pro forma? And, it really kind of prepared us for when we found this space that we were, ready to go. And we knew exactly what we needed to do, how to do it. And we were able to kind of shoot out from there.
What size space did you end up at?
We're in 17,000 square feet. A little bit smaller than we were looking. We were kind of in that 20 to 25,000 square feet. Admittedly, the pucker factor on 17,000 square feet is a lot less. So I think if we got that 31,000 square foot space, I don't sleep a lot, but I'd be sleeping a lot less. It'd be just terrifying to do that.
So, as you started to talk a little bit about what transpired over the first couple years of iterating on the business, getting it to a point where you feel comfortable, were you working in software then? And was this just kind of I
was working, as any entrepreneur can tell you, once you have the idea, it's hard to focus on your day job a little bit. So, I did what I could, and I did enough to get by, but luckily I was working a job where it was remote, and the hours were not, it's a consulting job, but you're not throwing 50, 60, 70 hours in. So you can, while working from home, be doing stuff on the side. And I was transparent with him that I was working on this before I joined the company, and gave me a ton of leeway and flexibility. Like, hey, I need to jump out. I've got to go do a space tour, for an hour. So like we were able to kind of do both at the same time.
And when did you make the decision to kind of go all in?
I think I went full time on this sometime in October, November. Now we opened up December 9th. So it was, kind of the right timing. The optimist in you thinks like, you've got your construction team. They handle everything. Everything's kind of already done. You just kind of sit back and let them do it. And then you've got your team to run the space. The realistic, thing is, while you spend months and years planning this, there's so many little micro decisions that need to be made in real time that need to be made within an hour, that I was over here pretty much full time from September on.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think oftentimes entrepreneurs have an idea, spend time doing it while continuing to work in their day to day. I want to hone in on that decision to go full time and what that meant for you as an entrepreneur going all in on the business, and how you arrived at making that decision, either by yourself, in collaboration with your family. Like what are some of those things that helped make that decision easier?
Well, first, let me say I'm extremely lucky, and not everybody is in my situation. I've got a wife that works a wonderful job, makes enough money, to get us by. And so I have that life raft that not everybody has. So like, I fully admit that I'm in a situation that most, if not all, are in. Now, the extra money that I was bringing in was, of course, amazing, and we still miss that. Money's going out right now. It's not coming in. But, what's the old saying? Like, you can't be half pregnant, right? If you're going to do this, and if you think that this is your future, and you believe in the idea, like, jump in the deep end and learn how to swim, right? Like, you have to commit yourself to it.
Yeah, I think that's great. Most entrepreneurs don't do it alone, even if they are solopreneurs. Obviously you mentioned your wife. What other types of community have you leaned on as you've started to build the business?
Going back to the baby analogy, it takes a village, right? So I'm the idea guy. I'm not the most detail oriented person. I have the vision, but it took an army of people to execute on the vision and to really, the product that we ended up with it far exceeds whatever I had in my wildest dreams, right? So going back to my wife, and my folks moved here from Indiana about 2 years ago to be closer to me and the kids and the family. My mom's a seasoned interior designer, and she's, been an interior designer for 40 something years. She and my wife took on the interior design, the furniture, the art, the colors, and, really like, here's kind of what I was expecting, and here's what I was okay with, and here's kind of where they brought it to. And just, the attention to detail, things that I never would have thought about and did, like they've elevated, what we've done. They've been hugely instrumental in this. I haven't mentioned him yet, but I have a partner in this. His name's Joe. I actually met him for the first time at that golf bar. Like a lot of us do, we meet our new best friends on the first tee of a golf course. I think with him, I have the vision, but there's a lot of gaps and skills that I don't have. And that's where my wife and my mom came in on the design side. Now he's extremely experienced at building golf leagues and golf communities. And a big thing for us is the simulators here are not just an amenity, right? Like it's the nucleus that the entire community is built around. So his experience running and building large scale golf leagues and building that community was vitally important. I didn't know this at the time. He's a graphic designer, a UI designer in software, but his branding and design any branding you see from us, any design, any marketing, he just, again, there's what I kind of thought this should be, and then there's what he produced, and it blows me away every time I see something that he produces. He's been instrumental in, just kind of building the brand, building the name, really taking it from idea into here's something tangible that people can relate to. And then of course we had, designers, architects, construction team, and every one of the partners that we worked with, we got so lucky. They were all great to work with. We learned a long time ago that any vendor or any partner we work with has to know and understand golf. It's not something that we could have known initially, but, we started working with an agency that, handles some of our marketing. Well, they know co-working, but they don't know golf. Well, so they had trouble communicating really what we were doing. They kind of kept putting us through the co-working lens, and the golf was always that kind of background amenity. It took us a while to work with him to realize, well, we need somebody who knows golf, who knows golfers, who knows the golfer mindset, and can communicate that vision. So, all the vendors we worked with kind of knew and understood golf, knew what we were going for, and really kind of helped us kind of, again, hone what we were doing into the product that we have today.
Yeah. So transitioning a little back to kind of when you started iterating for the first couple of years to get it to last December when you launched, there's this kind of idea that if you build it, they will come, right? Not to use a cliche line from Field of Dreams. The idea is, you had a great idea. You're a golfer, you're a professional, melding the two. People are just going to raise their hand and be like, I want to join. Oftentimes it doesn't happen like that. Talk a little bit about the experience of Clubhouse and how you arrived at bringing in initial members, continuing to add members, the challenge of growing that audience or membership, especially in these first couple months?
I mean, it truly was if you build this, they will come. I mean, the second we started putting our name out there, putting our idea out there, the kind of floodgates open with people saying, holy crap, what an idea like this. How has nobody done this before? The thing there is like we were building something for ourselves, something that we wanted, something that our friends wanted. And I think it's important, people always say, know your audience, know your customer. But it's even better if you can be the customer. Like if you put yourself in their shoes, you think like them, you act like them, you kind of know what they want. And there's obviously, a million different iterations of what the golf addict is. But at the heart, they all want to play as much golf as they can, to have that kind of community. So just kind of building something for ourselves. Like we just had this faith that people would come, and they started to come. Now we worked on this for 3 years before we got it open. So we had a long time to build up the email list, the Instagram followers. So we were able to kind of start on second or third base with, once we opened, we had this, this kind of nexus of this nucleus of people ready to go. I think we signed the lease in April of 24. I think we finally announced the location, because it had been 2 or 3 years of, hey, Broomfield's opening up this fall, and that deal falls through, and we were lying to customers. They're like, hey, we're opening up Denver Tech Center, whatever. And like, so we spent years of essentially just like pulling the rug out from under everybody. Like, hey guys, we're going to open, and we didn't. So we finally were able to announce the location. Hey, we got it done. We finally signed a deal. I think we announced it like right around the 1st of June. And I think the first space tour I gave was like 5 days later. He signed up for the first membership like a day or two later. Now he came through and toured the space, and it was nothing but a shell of an office. It was concrete and just like it had basically just been demolished. We don't have walls up. We didn't have any renderings at that point. We didn't have any simulators, like nothing. And just the idea and the vision, he's like, I'm in, like, what do you need? And it kind of went from there. So we started getting kind of cocky, like, oh, this is going to be easy, right? Like we've sold this thing, and there's just dust on the floor. There's nothing here. It doesn't always work that way. I think what I learned is that the first customers are actually the easiest. So once you get through the ones that were already kind of there, primed, ready to go, now you got to go start selling to the new ones. You got to go find the next ones. That was actually interesting to me. I thought this thing was just going to, the first ones were going to be the hardest, and then like the pinwheel effect, it was just going to get easier and easier, but it's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah, touch on that, because I think it'd be interesting to hear why and how, or from your perspective, what those challenges were and how you overcame them or are overcoming them.
Well, when you're selling vaporware, when you're selling an idea, but you don't have anything tangible to show, you really need somebody who can kind of see that vision with you and trust in you to do it. And so when you talk to enough of those people, you'll get those early adopters right away. The people who like, oh, I don't see anything real here yet, but I know that you're doing this, and I'm here to help you. We know you're going to make mistakes along the way. We're okay. We're here to support you. The idea is amazing. Those are the ones that are signing up before we even opened our doors. We gave a ton of tours of the space before we were open. We opened December 9th, and November was a crazy month for us, just giving tours and open houses. And once you got through those initial early adopters and they signed, the next group of people are like, okay, like you're not open yet. I don't, I get the idea. I'm starting to see the kind of construction and the vision come together, but like, I don't know if I could trust you enough with a 1-year membership. And, we're not the cheapest co-working offering in the world. So, then it took some time to have us get our doors open, to actually show the product, to work through some of the early kinks. And now people are starting to come back and saying, okay, now you're open. Now you've worked it out a little bit. Like we're interested in doing this again.
Yeah. And I'm very new to the co-working space, so I don't have a lot of knowledge around it, but I imagine since there's a limited amount of space and a limited amount of time that the space is open, there's a cap to membership or number of members. How do you approach balancing, continuing to want to bring in new members, but also making sure that current members have the best experience they can by not coming to a overcrowded venue?
Yeah. So again, it's a learning experience. And one of the things we didn't know is how many simulators do you need per person, per square feet. So we have 17,000 square feet. That's split up into 2 different suites. We've got a 6,000 square foot kind of golf lounge with the 3 TrackMan bays, the putting green. We've got 5 conference rooms. We've got a big kind of kitchen, bar, lounge area. And then we've got 11,000 square feet across the hall of nothing but pretty much office space. And we've got 50 individual offices. We had no idea how many simulators we need. We kind of just put a guess and we're like, the space fits 3 perfectly. We would have to make a bunch of changes if we wanted to fit more. So let's just go with it. I think what there's a couple things in co-working that there's table stakes, right? You can't get them wrong. The Wi-Fi needs to work. They need to be able to access the basic stuff that any workspace needs. The second kind of group of table stakes for us is the members need to have access to the simulators. Now we kind of said, we went back and forth for years on, do they need to book all the simulators? Do they need to pay for the simulators? What is it? And we were going to have to build custom software because no booking app kind of took it from a co-working perspective and didn't really know how to handle that. The problem with booking too is now you've got one person on a bay and they kind of own it for 30 minutes or an hour. It's not a big community builder, right? Like, hey, I own the bay, you wait your turn, you wait in line. We wanted the bays to be this, the simulators to be this kind of community mixer thing where, you've got people from different industries, all strangers coming together, like, let's go play 9 holes. So the booking system never really worked for us and we'd have to build something custom. So finally we're like, let's just turn it into a club with no tee times. Like, if the bays are open, you walk up and you play. If you walk up and somebody's on there, either they can invite you to play or they limit their time to 30 minutes and you get your turn. And, it's worked well for us so far. We're not full. We're not close to being full yet, but we're starting to see, we're learning. We're starting to see peak times, high demand times. Like, obviously, 8 to 11 in the morning, people are heads down and they're working. And around 11 or so, people start to trickle over to the golf side and, blow off some steam, take meetings from the simulators. And, the afternoons 1 to 3 are getting kind of busy. And then people go home for the day. It's Denver. Nobody works till 5. So they're right from 4 to 5. People are heading to the mountains or doing whatever. So we're starting to take all these analytics. We've got a lot of occupancy sensors. We're starting to understand, what are the peak times? How are we going to adapt to this? Because we do see a situation where once we get close to full or fill up, that, now the member experience could be degraded. Like, hey, I joined this place and I'm paying a decent amount of money to be here and I can never access a simulator. So what's the point, right? So, it's our first job is to fill the place up. Our second job is to retain the members and make sure their experience is top notch. And so, we're constantly adjusting, right? We had to make some adjustments to our guest policy just the other day. It's easier to start open and kind of pull it back than it is to, start really kind of narrow and then open it up. So we started open. We're like, look, this is your space. We want you guys to use it as you would or as you want to. And if we need to make adjustments so people take advantage of it, or if we, if your experience starts to degrade, we reserve the right to adapt. And we're already starting to kind of see the need for that. Not a ton of major changes, just some kind of micro directional changes to help preserve that experience.
Well, and you talked about this location kind of being the MVP, and you'll continue to iterate. What do you see as the future of Clubhouse? The next 3 years, 5 years, and on.
I mean, obviously, I could see 1, 2, 3 of these in every major and secondary market in the country, in the world, whatever. That's the vision. That's what you dream about at night. Now, there's a couple major roadblocks to doing that. One is these things are not cheap to open up. Like the capital needed to open one up, and the risk involved in opening one up is extremely high. From the time you start looking for your, on your first tour to the time that you open your doors is generally 12 months. If everything goes frictionlessly, seamlessly. So, scaling from one location to 20, it's not fast and easy. It's not software. You can't scale up that quickly. I think the other thing too is, we're first time operators and, I would love to go open up a second location tomorrow if I had the capital to do so and the ability, but we're still learning. We're still making mistakes. And the second location needs to be the iteration on the idea. And so, I don't think we're definitely not ready to do that yet, but we can see ourselves getting there. And it's just different muscles, right? So we're a first time operator. We need to learn and build the one location operator muscle and learn how to successfully run an operation and retain members for more than a year. And then opening up regional, the regional muscle is a completely different muscle than owning one. And then let's say we want to go open up our next one in Chicago, the opening up a national, branch or national business is a completely different skill set and muscle than opening 2 or 3 in the same city. So while we have aspirations to get this thing going as far as we can, we're realistic in what it takes to get there and, when we're mature enough and ready enough to move on to the next step.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's such a local idea. So the approach of making sure you nail the first one to where then you could open a second one, nail that one, then it becomes regional, then it becomes national, I think is the right approach for sure. You talked a little bit about the importance of creating a place for community, right? And golf oftentimes can feel very alone or as an individual. And you mentioned the community that you have that helped you get to where you guys are today. But talk a little bit from a member's perspective, how important the community is, that shared interest of both having a place to work and play is, and the emphasis you've placed on creating that community and fostering that.
I mean, I think that's it, right? Like, not to give the secret sauce away, but if we were just a WeWork or a Regis that has a simulator over in a corner, it's not the same, right? It's not the same experience. And so I think there's kind of two sides of this coin. One is most, if not all of our members are small businesses, solopreneurs, small teams, and they're all generally in B2B. And so, we've got a member who's in commercial insurance. Well, he's like, every other member here is potentially a customer of mine. No other co-working space allows me the access to other members to mix with them and to become close with them that this space does because of the golf. So they look at it as a prospecting, opportunity for them. But secondly, we opened in December of 2024. We were 4 or 5 years removed from COVID. We needed a lot of things to happen for us to be able to work. And, COVID unfortunately happened, but it brought everybody work from home. People realized the value in remote work and flexible work and hybrid work. But then the pendulum started to swing back a little bit where I love working from home, but I'm lonely. I don't interface with people during the day. My kids are annoying me. My dog's barking. So now it's like, I want to keep the flexibility of that, but I need to be around people. And so we're in this cool time where it used to be, you can't pick your coworkers or colleagues, right? You join a company and you kind of inherit who's ever there. Well, now with the rise of flexible work, with the kind of, boom of co-working, you can't pick your colleagues, but you can pick the people that you're working next to. And so people join here because, I'm tired of working from home. I'm lonely. We had, our first members happy hour was like the third day we kind of opened up the sales from 4 to 6. We brought out some of the beer and we just said, hey guys, come hang out and play. Nothing structured. Let's just go play. And we had, 12 of the early members come, complete strangers, had never talked to each other before. We were open 3 days at that point, different industries. And just like you see on a golf course, like within 5 minutes, best friends, talking it up like they had known each other for years. And so that was just awesome to sit back and see. And this is kind of the validation of, it's not just a workspace with golf. It's a community that, you'll grow friendships, you'll grow your business network. But then the other cool part was seeing that next day, that Thursday, Friday, Monday, of those relationships continuing in, and all of a sudden people are starting to get paired up on the Sims.
Yeah. And I assume if it hasn't started yet, there will be a competitive element as well, because most golf...
It starts next week. So we've done some like kind of little things here and there. Because we have TrackMan, we have access to some of the courses that they play on the tour, Pebble Beach being the first one. So we decided opening up, next week is the Pebble Beach Pro-Am tournament. So we're doing a qualifying round Monday, Tuesday. Anybody can sign up and play handicap stroke play event. Thursday will be the round of 4, and then Friday will be the championship. We'll do little things like that throughout the year. We've kind of looked at the PGA Tour schedule and the courses we have access to make sure that we can play the same courses the pros do. We have Bethpage on there, so we'll do a Ryder Cup event later this year. We're going to start opening up, quarterly match play leagues where it's like, hey, Ari, you and I are paired up. We have 5 days this week. Let's figure out a time where you and I are both in the office and we'll go play our 9-hole match. We'll play match play and then we'll kind of move on from there. So we'll start opening that up. We have every member gets invited to our Slack channel, our Slack group. And it's, a way that we communicate with them. They communicate with us, but we also have a channel in there called the Tee Sheet where it's 10 degrees outside right now. It's not happening, but come spring, summer, hey, I've got a tee time Tuesday at 4:00. I've got 3 spots available. Anybody want to join? So now we're going to start to bring that community from the co-working space, from the digital simulators out into the real golf world as well.
That's awesome. And I assume that you have a mix of golfers like you who have played their whole lives, but then also golfers that are like me who picked it up during COVID. And, the beauty of golf as the sport has evolved is the interest just continues to grow. And I think most new businesses in golf are trying to make the sport more accessible. And I think the Clubhouse does just that. Are you seeing that variety of golf skilled professionals joining the club?
For sure. I mean, people join because they just picked up golf and they're like, this is a place that I can get better at. Like the beauty of simulators is you can't lose a ball, you can play fast. All of the fear of a new golfer going to a golf course, like I'm going to slow everybody up, they're going to think I'm terrible, like all of that kind of goes away. And so, we've got a couple members, like there's one in particular I'm thinking about where, he came in, he knew how to swing a club. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't good, and he's here on the sim 30 to 60 minutes pretty much every day. And we have actually a team of PGA instructors that come in a couple of days a week. They give lessons to their clients here, but they also give our members lessons. And he took one lesson with them, and seeing the turnaround in 3 weeks of when he kind of just started coming in and how terrible that swing was to seeing where he is now today, like that 3 week progression is unbelievable. Like just the time that he spent and the instruction that he got. I'm really honestly excited I want to figure out a way to put some metrics on it, but like start tracking handicaps over time, because most people don't have the ability to go swing a club for 30 to 60 minutes a day from November to March or April.
Yeah, no, I think that's a super cool aspect, and kind of hits on that aspect of community, right? To be able to watch a golfer improve as they would, I think will be really neat to measure and communicate out to the rest of the group. As we kind of close out the conversation, would love to hear any advice you'd want to share with other entrepreneurs. I love what you spoke about earlier about, just getting out and doing. But what other aspects of entrepreneurship do you think you'd want to share with the next generation of potential business owners?
I think the easiest low-hanging fruit is know your customer, right? It helps specifically if you are your own customer. If you've built something that you want, but that, or you've got data that shows that other people want to buy what you want to buy. I think we got lucky in that way. Like it was always hard for me to go build software for oil and gas companies because I don't know oil and gas companies. Like you try to have that empathy and put yourself in their shoes, but like at the end of the day, you are not that person. So you're always going to be a little bit off. But if you're building for the person that, you are that person, it's a lot easier to again, you're starting on second or third base there. We didn't get too much into it. It took us 3 years from the time that we started looking for space to the time that we found this deal. In between that time was, we looked at 80 to 100 locations. We had 20 something deals that were in process that we had letters of intent signed. We got down to what I consider the 1 yard line. I thought we were going to have a signed deal, and then they fell apart, mostly for reasons of they didn't want to work with a startup. They were scared of, we had no operating history. We had no capital. We had, if we went south, they had no way to get their money back. So it was 2.5, 3 years of hell. Lots of frustrating times just sitting there waiting for your broker to call and to tell you got a deal, and then they end up calling you and saying, it fell apart, blah, blah. And so it was a hard time. But I think the thing that I took from it is if you believe in the idea and if you know that like you were put on earth to bring this to the world, like it doesn't matter what it takes, just keep your head in the game, keep your head down. If you need to iterate on it, like, we almost gave up to the point of looking at these big spaces and we're like, okay, let's go back to that 5,000 square feet. If we're not getting deals because we've got no operating history, no proof, let's go back to something that's small that we can afford. And we can grow it from there, right? We might not make $1 on it, but at least we can prove that there's demand for it. So, keep your head in the game. If you believe in the idea, keep going at it, because it only takes one little break, and it might not be when you want it to be, but it only takes one little break to kind of, get that ball rolling.
Yeah. And I think you always have to be ready for that break, right? Like, and to your point, if you're in the game, you're ready.
For sure. Yeah. What people say, there's no such thing as failures. There's just learning opportunities. Like it's hard to believe that when you're in the middle of it, right? Every time you hear you've got a failed deal or, a failed product launch or whatever it is, like it's hard to believe that like, oh, this is learning opportunity. Great. But when you're at the end of the road and you've succeeded or you've got the thing past the goal line, you've got it open, it's a lot easier to see those as learning opportunities. So, try to believe that as much as you can. I'm a firm believer in things work out the way that they should. Things work out in the end. And so you just have to strap and be okay with the roller coaster of it.
So before we jump into a rapid fire end of interview questionnaire, would love to kind of go back to fostering that community, because I think it's important to give the audience a sense of, for those 3 years that you had built that community and started to message to them to when you actually opened, how did you engage with them? How frequently? Like what was the cadence for engagement other than we think we're going to open at this time at this location, but then we're not, like what other ways were you engaging with the community to keep them into you guys?
Not a ton. At a certain point when you misfire a couple of times, you become a little bit sheepish with communicating, right? Like I'm now on year 2 of selling vaporware. We don't have anything. I've led these people on long enough. They thought we were going to open and it never came true. So like you start to get a little bit gun shy and you don't do that. Now, we didn't do a lot of communication from our official channels, our emails and Instagram and stuff like that. But, we spend a lot of time, not as much, but as we'd like, but we spend a lot of time golfing and in the golf community. And so, we've got our name on our bag. We've got name on our shirts. Like I said, we had merch before we, had it. So we spend a lot of time when we go out and play 18 holes with somebody, you get a lot of time to, what do you do? Like, well, here's what I do. Here's what I'm trying to do. And you get a lot of time to talk to people that way. And again, it's just another, just kind of small feedback loops that you get.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, Josh, I've really appreciated the conversation. I'm just going to end with a handful of quick questions to give the audience a sense of you as a person, and then we'll give you a chance to tell everyone how to find Clubhouse online and across the socials, if that sounds good.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Favorite golf course you've ever played?
How long we got? I thought we were supposed to cap this to an hour. I'm just going to name a couple because there's, I played a lot of great courses around the world, but there's only a handful that I almost on a daily basis replay the round in my head. So, obviously the old course is the old course. Little Hinch in Ireland. Like I think about, especially that front nine on a daily basis. I love Bandon. Like, I'm a sucker for Bandon. It's good. And then Pasatiempo, just outside of the Bay Area, is one of those courses where I got to play it 2019. My wife was out there for a conference and I drove down and played it. And just, how many times do you get to play like an original Mackenzie? You can't go on Augusta. Like it's just, I think about those rounds daily.
That's awesome. The fact that you've been able to play all those courses as well. What's the one piece of gear you can't live without on the course?
I wish I could say my cell phone. Or I wish I could say not my cell phone. I mean, obviously clubs. I guess I'll give plugs. By doing this, we've gotten a lot of cool partnerships. We just signed a partnership with Mizuno. And so we now we're a Mizuno retailer. We're a fitter. I've got my new Mizuno clubs coming in and they're freaking fantastic, man. Like I didn't, the ego gets popped up a little bit when you're flying your 7-iron 195. But no, I mean, I don't know, one piece of gear. I love I've got one of those Alford, I think it's called Alford, like e-wheel push carts.
Huh?
I made the conscious decision, I don't know, 8 years ago to start walking as much as I could. If I'm going to spend time out here playing golf, I might as well get some exercise out of it. And it slows the round down and it kind of pieces you out a little bit. But, getting older, bad back. I don't love carrying as much. So that little e-wheels push cart as has come to any of the course that I play here is pretty hilly. And, when it's 95 degrees in the summer here, it's nice to be able to let that thing go and walk through. So
that's awesome. Your go-to snack or drink on the course?
I don't drink a lot. I don't like drinking. So I generally just bring water with lemon juice or whatever. If I do, I guess I'm getting high noons, a good transfusion after the round. Sometimes I'll do transfusions without vodka because I just love grape juice. That sounds good. But like that'll replenish you. Favorite snack, the good part of me, if my wife is listening, will say like, nuts or beef jerky or something. But, I'm a sucker for those like little peanut butter and jelly, those without the crust, like the kids things. You get those things, the Uncrustables. Yeah. If you get those things frozen off the cart, like those things are so good in the middle of summer.
Biggest lesson golf has taught you about business?
You're going to suck for a while. You can only just continue to get better, but you're never going to master it. It's just the impossible thing to master, but you can only get better.
That's awesome. Last question. What's your proudest moment as a golf entrepreneur so far?
As a golf entrepreneur, I mean, just getting here and opening it, it's that first happy hour, just being able to sit back and see these guys all come together. But I'll do the happy version too is, again, we opened up December 9th. So Thanksgiving, we were all in town. We kind of had to stay in town and, get the place ready to go. We were 2 weeks from opening and, we were here from, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the family. I've got 2 young kids and we've got 3 bays. So I had like the Ohio State, Michigan game on the middle bay. We had Blippy or Bluey on one bay. And then my oldest son was playing golf on the other one. I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is a place they're going to spend so much time. Every weekend, they're like, hey, can we go to Clubhouse? They want to come here, learn how to play golf. Like, it's just awesome to watch my kids come in here and like get to use the place and experience it.
That's awesome. I think we're gonna stop there because what a great answer. And I think you're teaching your kids the value of hard work. You're teaching your kids the value of effort, and keep on doing what you're doing. Josh, before I let you jump, let the audience know where they could find out more about Clubhouse and what you guys are up to across social.
Yeah, so we're everywhere. Clubhouse Work Golf, Instagram, Facebook. We don't do a ton of. Our website's Clubhouse Work Golf. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to reach out, talk to me. Otherwise, hopefully you'll find me out on a golf course this summer because I don't get to play as much. So,
well, I appreciate you jumping on, Josh. I've enjoyed the conversation and love what you're doing. And as an East Coaster, I can't wait to see the Clubhouse in the DC area.
Yeah, we'll be out there. We'll be out there one day.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. Take care.
Thanks, Ari.